Welcome, everybody. We're just populating the webinar. Give us a moment to get all the participants in. We hope you're huddled somewhere comfortable, maybe have your lunch with you or a snack. Getting ready for a great conversation. All right. And with that, I'd like to say good afternoon. Checking what time of day it is. It literally is afternoon. Good afternoon and very happy New Year to you and to your families and your loved ones. We welcome you to today's Women's Empowerment Network event. I'm Helen Arcantu, and I'm the CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am so happy that you could make some time and put yourself as a priority in your day, in your Monday, no less, so that we could spend this time together. Well, it's that time of year. New Year's resolutions are always on our mind. When we start to get closer to the end of the year, we start trying to remember what were our resolutions for last year and trying to take stock on how we did with them. Although, you know, there's always a kind of plethora of resolutions that we create. There's usually one that's connected to personal finances in some way. So the question is, how did you do on your resolutions from last year? Did you attain your goals? Did you miss your mark? We know, as I said, that we spend a lot of time reflecting on what's past, but the important thing right now is for us to focus on what's ahead. It is a new year. We have a new scorecard for us to be able to start off with. And, you know, quite frankly, although resolutions are definitely something that we, often start the year with, this is really a way that we want to live our lives with an intention that's really focused on being our best selves and really understanding the financial aspect of, and how that's connected to our empowerment as women is so key. So this was a wonderful opportunity to lift this conversation up for our Women's Empowerment Network and have this be part of our financial series to kick off the year and share financial tips so that we can have a strong, successful year. And again, no judgments here, no looking back and beating yourself up about, what's happened. Let's just focus on looking forward and, how we can live 2023 in strength and impact and, really empower ourselves. We definitely have the right people to have this conversation with, for sure. Today's guests will not only give us valuable tips and strategies around managing our financial funds and our future, but they'll help us talk through a little bit about the difficulties that we can encounter when we're making these important life decisions. There is not only financial strategy needed here, but there's some psychological strategy needed here too, in order to be successful with this key area for our living, for sure. Just so you know, we will have time at the end of this hour for us to take questions. So if you have anything that is popping into your head as we are talking, feel free to drop them into the Q&A box, and we will share those questions with our panelists. You should also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. It's a great opportunity, even though we are virtual, it's still a great opportunity for us to be able to network, see who's here, and, feel free to also chime in if something that's being said really resonates for you and you want to lift it up. Still an opportunity for us to stay connected, even though we're on Zoom right now. So with that, I want to thank our sponsors, of course, Cross River Bank, as well as Veris Residential for their support. These events happen because of the support of folks in our community that come forward. They believe in our work and they believe in all of you and they want you to live your best lives. And so we're grateful that they create that investment in all of us. I also want to thank all of you for making the time, as I said, and I want to thank our wonderful team behind the scenes that pull all the details together to make this happen. And so with that, let me introduce you all to Lisa Howard. She has been working in the banking industry for over 12 years, and she's the head of Project Management Office at Cross River. She has a Bachelor of Science and Business Administration with a concentration in finance from Seton Hall University. Her favorite and most used skill set is problem solving. And she enjoys bringing different perspectives together to find creative and innovative solutions. So welcome, Lisa. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today.
And we have a familiar face back with us again. We always love chatting with Tanvi Matthews. She is a licensed psychotherapist and certified life coach, practicing in mental health for 18 years. She is the founder and clinical director of Emerge, the counseling and coaching center, which is located in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Tanvi received her Bachelor of Science degree in psychiatric rehabilitation from Kean University and her Master's of Science degree in rehabilitation counseling from the former University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. Her passion lies in working with adults and families through individual, family, and couples therapy, as well as public speaking and events and workshops. Her goal for her clients is to help them live their best lives. Welcome, Tanvi. It's so great to see you again, too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
So let's jump in. So much to get to, and so happy that we have our participants here with us to hear all this great conversation that we're about to jump into, an important conversation. So Lisa, let's start with you. Why, there's so much to think about, around setting financial goals for ourselves. And why is connecting to a financial institution an important first step in really being successful in this process?
I think connecting to the right financial institution is a really important first step because it provides you with access to a wide range of products that might fit your needs, that will fit your needs, especially if you're looking to start saving and investing and planning for retirement. They can offer things such as high yield savings accounts, certificates of deposit, mutual funds, and they also, on the other side of things, not just for savings, but also managing your expenses. So if there is a large purchase that needs to be made, sometimes people just look to credit cards as a solution, but there also may potentially be loans that are better fit and maybe a lower interest rate. And it really just connects you with the resources to help you make some of those decisions. Some banks and some financial institutions also offer apps that are easy to use on your phone. And that can be really helpful if you are starting to budget maybe for the first time, or you want to really focus on certain financial goals, and having something, just a little bit of help through your day-to-day routine through this app. Some of these banking apps would be really helpful in setting you up for success.
Yeah, and I know I love all the app options too, because at this point in our lives, we're all working off of multiple devices, and we're getting work done in different places and spaces. And it's a great opportunity knowing that you can access information, collect information, engage with somebody from whatever device you're working on. So that's a great tool to have. So what are some of the goals as women that we should be having, in our head when it comes to setting our year up for success?
I think financial goals are very personal. And I think that everyone's financial situation is unique. And the most important thing is that your financial goals are important to you, because that's going to help you prioritize that. I think, each person has different things going on in their lives. They have different things that come up, certain expenses and certain things that they're planning for. But I think the first step in financial planning and creating financial goals is understanding your budget, right? That in itself can be a goal, creating the budget, having a view of everything that you are spending, and anything you're bringing in, and determining if there's small changes you need to make throughout the month, so you have a little more at the end to put towards the goal. Um, some goals for some women might be creating an emergency fund, and that's basically a 3 to 6 month um, fund that would help with unexpected expenses or just any emergencies that come up along the way. It could also be paying off debt, high interest debt, or paying off any sort of loans, and saving for retirement. That's another one. It's never too early to start thinking about retirement and saving for that. And also, some people want to maybe use this year as a chance to invest. There's many different goals, and again, everyone's financial goals are very personal to them. As long as it's important and it helps you prioritize that throughout the month. It really helps you focus your spending when you have a goal that you really, really want to achieve in a certain period of time. And I think the most important thing for goal setting is to write them down or put them somewhere where you don't forget throughout the month or the year, making them very specific and giving yourself a deadline for them. And that way you hold yourself accountable for those goals. And again, making sure they're your own goals, whether it's for yourself, something for your family. It just makes it very personal and makes it a priority in your thinking and your thought process as you're spending.
Yeah, writing them down, that's important, right? Because sometimes we just say, oh, I really want to do this, but having it there in front of you definitely does keep you accountable for sure. And it was great for you to be able to remind us that there's lots of different goals. There might be some for us personally, some for our family, some for our, some for us right now, some for our future. To spend some time thinking about, all of those different potential opportunities for goal setting here for sure. So you mentioned budget. You did mention budget. And, two questions there. One is, what do you recommend in terms of how to create a budget? Like, what should we include in that budget? How rigid, how much should be in there? And, then how do we follow it, once it's created? And stay connected to what we put down on paper. I don't know, over the years, I've created budgets and then I put them somewhere, but didn't go back and revisit them regularly. And I think, obviously that's key. So tell us a little bit about how to create a budget, what should go into it, and how we should keep ourselves accountable to stay connected to it so that it's actually an ongoing useful tool for us.
Well, I think the first step in budgeting is just understanding where your money is going, what bills you have, what bills are coming up, and getting a view of everything. So we're looking at income and expenses. Income is any money that you're bringing in, whether it's through your paycheck, if you have investments that are bringing you income, um, anything that kind of bring adds to the amount you have. It could be a birthday gift. If someone gives you $100, that could be counted as part of your income when you're budgeting for the month. And then expenses, it's anything we spend money on. It could be fixed, it could be mortgage, rent, utilities, car payment, insurance, and then it could also be variable, and that's anything else. So that would be our food, our groceries, any money we're spending on entertainment, clothes, things that are not usually like a set bill, but things that throughout the month we have a little bit of control over where we're spending, um, and just factoring all of those in. So once we know how much money we're bringing in, and then on the expense side, how much money we're sending out, how much money we're paying out, we subtract those. And if you have money left over at the end of the month, that's a good thing. That's a surplus. And that means you can focus on putting that towards any financial goals, investments, retirement. That's where you can start, thinking of where you want to put that. And then if it's in the negative and it's a deficit, then we look at where we're spending, where we can kind of scale back a little bit and make small changes that will have a big difference at the end of the month when we're looking at what we have left over, just to bring that number, what we have left over, into the positive and not be in a negative. So that's really the first step. I would recommend, whether if you're using online banking or if you're using, cash to do most of your purchases, making a record of everything. Maybe it doesn't even have to be for the full month, but just see where your spending patterns are And if you feel like you're spending a little more on certain things than you anticipated, that's where you can start kind of scaling back. And this ties back into your financial goals. How much at the end of the month, or even at the end of the week, do you want to have left over? Because how much do you need to be able to get to that goal, whatever goal you set, whether it's just saving more, whether it's moving, preparing for an investment that you'd like to make. It really just helps to identify first what you have to work with at the end of the month, and then where we can make small changes to make that number grow.
So it really is an ongoing process, right? It's not like a one and done. It's from based on what you're saying, even when you're talking about financial gifts that may come in the month and so forth. So it's something we've got to really stay on top of, which is great reminder. So you're giving us please.
Oh, I'm sorry. And and the one thing to note, I know some people want to be very strict with their budget, but we also have to account for the fact that life happens and unexpected expenses do come up, and it's just making sure we're prepared for those. So, there's no, I would say there's no one rule for budgeting, but it is important to, just make sure that we're prepared for the unexpected as well.
That's great, because we all know the unexpected happens every day. As I shared before we came on, our hot water heater blew this morning. So there it is, folks. $2,000 of an unexpected expense that popped in on a Monday morning. But I mean, that kind of stuff pops up often for everybody, for sure. So it's a great reminder, though, to think about the budgeting situation. And if you do have a surplus too, how to put some of that aside to have that cushion for days like this, for sure. So, again, you're giving us so many great processes, to do. I think sometimes the biggest, block from doing it, though, is ourselves, and kind of creating that headspace to do it, and also emotionally tackling what we need to and what we need to face, when we put it all down on paper and it's staring back at us, because sometimes budgeting alone can really put a spotlight on areas in your life that you need to do some work, for sure. There's a connection there. So folks, that's why we invited Tanvi to the party, because she's gonna help us think a little bit about that aspect of it. So let's talk about some mindfulness strategies. How can we really be present in this process, and commit to putting effort into this space, being open to what we learn from doing it, and then taking on whatever we have to be successful in attaining these goals.
Mhm. So when we're trying to be mindful with our financial decisions, we want to encourage the use of our brain and our gut. We don't want to be so emotionally charged when we're making decisions, because when we make decisions based off of emotions, a lot of times it can just create stress and more anxiety later down the line, because we didn't think it through. So we want to encourage clear mind, being relaxed, even before we make a purchase or we're making an investment, making sure that we have the resources to do so. We don't want to commit to something, get involved in something, and then afterwards that regret sets in because we don't have the resources to pay for it. And again, that's going to create that whole circle where, now the stress ensues, and how am I going to get through this? So the goal is to slow down and try to think critically. And when we practice mindfulness, we're very present in the moment. There's a level of heightened awareness of what's happening around us. Why are we making this purchase or investment? How is it going to benefit us? It should be more beneficial than hurtful to us in the long term. So, we want to critically think about each spending opportunity as much as possible.
Well, that's great. And I also just want to remind those of you that are on with us, and thanks to Christine and Stephanie and Nicole and Alta Gracia for letting us know that they're with us. Anyone else who's joined since I made that announcement, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Again, feel free to put any questions in the Q&A. We will be taking questions from all of you for our wonderful panelists before we leave each other today. Tanvi, thank you for kind of giving us that mindset piece. I think, sometimes one of the pieces that's a block for us is that, everything connected to money feels like a really big decision and big decisions feel permanent, really long lasting consequences, for those. And that can really, overwhelm us to the point sometimes of just doing nothing. So how do we embrace the thoughts and the feelings that kind of get in our way from jumping into this process to begin with? And also, as we're learning about ourselves as we're going through it, how can we manage those to make better choices going forward?
So, one thing we need to understand is that there's always a way to navigate through our thoughts. Okay, it's not always the end all be all. Finances are going to go up and down. Life is constantly changing. We want to be more solution focused than problem focused. We know that in life, there are going to be problems day to day. We can either choose to be reactive, or we can say, hey, you know what, I can't become consumed by the problem. So let me pull myself out, take a step back, breathe for a second, and see what my options are here. Right? You could have become very reactive this morning easily, like, oh, this is going to throw off my morning. This was not in the plan. But again, if we take a step back and we just look at the situation, okay, what can we do in this moment? We clean up the mess and we call someone and we get a new water heater. So, we want to make sure that we realize that to every problem, there is always a solution. The first choice that you pick might not work. The second choice you pick might not work, but you have to continue to recognize what your options are to help yourself grow. There are going to be barriers put in our place time and time again, whether it's financially, which can create an emotional turmoil, but we want to break a pattern. So if we're making the same choices over and over again, we're going to be faced with the same problem over and over again. So at some point, we have to make a decision. We have to take a look at, where do I break this pattern and change how I'm making choices in my with the finances of my life.
Well, that's so true. That's so true. And, as I'm listening to you, I'm just wondering, because obviously what we're talking about here from, all the great strategies that Lisa gave us, this is going to take a little time, right? To be able to go through this process and, think about where our expenses are, to create a budget, think about where our money's coming in to create a budget, think about what are our priorities, do that soul searching. And sometimes with all our day-to-day to-do list, and sometimes with the stuff that pops up, like, for me this morning, that time seems to never really just be sitting there in our day. So how do we make this, a priority and set aside that time to reflect and really focus on creating these goals and whatever we need to do, like the budgeting and some of the other strategies that Lisa gave us to kind of get there?
I would say as often as it's going to take to turn into a routine, right? We want to checking in on our goals and making sure we're budgeting. It should be something that we can tie in to our day-to-day life. I don't recommend looking at your numbers every single day, which I've seen people do before, because it becomes obsessive. And again, that if you go to extreme, it can create more anxiety and stress as well. But, maybe once a week where, okay, it's Friday afternoon. Let me take a look at what my spending habits have been, especially now, like Lisa just said, there's apps for everything. We can track receipts, big investments, small purchases, whatever it is, we can track it so easily. But we want to turn it into a routine so we don't forget about our goals. What am I looking at for the month? What do I want to put aside? Am I reaching that? Am I overspending? How can I pull back? Where can I pull back? And even importantly, especially for people who have families, we have to be able to have conversations with our significant others and with our children's. What are some realistic expectations? We might have to scale back on some activities or dining out. We might have to push back on and hold back from purchasing the car that we're looking to get. How can we navigate together as a family as well in decision making? But in order to create this prioritization, it's important for us to create a routine where it falls into place on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or monthly. Some people choose to do it quarterly. I also say if you have a good accountant or a financial advisor, because you might be busy with the hustle and bustle of the day-to-day life, a lot, like I have an accountant that will check in with me regularly, and tell me where I should be putting my money. Same thing with our financial advisor. That can be a great asset, for support as well. So if you need that extra reminder, you have that. We also have our phones that can create a good reminder, like it's Friday afternoon, alarm goes off. Let me set aside 45 minutes to sit down and just focus on this.
Those are all great strategies. And I guess I think I want to ask Lisa that same question. Do you have any strategies that you recommend from your world to, make this kind of a regular on our calendars, and how to keep it present, since these are goals that we're trying to set ourselves? I guess it's like working out, right? It's just, really making sure that it stays a priority.
Yes, and I think developing the habit, and like Tanvi said, creating the behavior and the habits for yourself, but not going to an extreme. If you're checking your budget every day and you're spending every day, any changes can feel really overwhelming, and maybe we're being a little too strict with ourselves versus looking at the bigger picture. I think it's a little bit easier to look, although the first time we do a budget, the first time we look at our spending, that might feel a little bit overwhelming. But as you look at the bigger picture and then break it up, I always like to create a plan for myself. So if I want to set a goal for the end of the year, what do I need to do each month to make sure I'm on track? And then I'm just going to check it monthly. Maybe if there's a month where I feel like I'm spending a little too much, I'll check in, by the second or third week and just make sure I'm not going too off track. And then maybe thinking in my head, okay, if I do that this month, say I don't hit the goal this month, can I make up for it next month? Or is this something I'm going to have to accept as I'm making this other purchase outside of my financial goals? Is that something I'm going to have to kind of weigh and determine if it's the spend is better suited elsewhere versus this goal here? It's just checking in with yourself and seeing what you're still comfortable doing, reevaluating your goals regularly, because our life and what we decide today, a year from now, might be very different. And you just have to check in with yourself along the way to make sure that it's still a goal that's a priority for you.
That's great. And, Tanvi said something when she was talking that made me want to ask both of you the question. We're talking about this as being personal goals, for the women that, are with us today to be thinking about. But, as you noted, Tanvi, many of us are connected to other people that are involved in our spending in some way. And although we made this a personal goal, I'm not sure what was that, everyone, is everyone on the same page? If the idea was we were going to do a great family vacation this year, but suddenly that's not going to be, doesn't look feasible as we're looking at the month to month as it's happening because of unexpected costs that came up, or, shifts in goals. How do we get everyone on the same page and also on this journey if you are connected to others and they're part of this goal that you create for yourself? Because I know, and we say this about some of the other goals about health and wellness, that we make as well, is that, if we're not operating in a vacuum, there's others that, will impact our success rate with this one as well.
Mhm. There has to be an open line of communication. So, if you're sitting down once a week or once a month, your significant other should probably be sitting there with you. Obviously, if you have young children, you're not going to put financial stress on the children. But you and your partner have to understand what the parameters are of the budgeting and what's affordable and what's not. At the end of the day, we want to live comfortably, and we want to have a little bit of that cushion for emergency sake. But we don't want to be reactive either. So we want to make sure that we're realistic. What's realistic for us, not what's realistically happening around us, because people will spend, people will live this lavish lifestyle, but that doesn't mean it's affordable to everyone. You don't want to create panic. So open line of communication. When you sit down, you should always be sitting together, and discussing what the expectations are. And it should be a joint partnership.
Anything to add, Lisa?
I completely agree. And I think that, Tanvi, you messaged it perfectly, because it does need to be a partnership and an open line of communication. Because if one person doesn't know what's going on in the other person's financial life and what their budgets look like, these surprises that we always say to prepare for, life happens, unexpected expenses happen. Without that clear line of communication, you reduce the visibility to think ahead and to be able to plan ahead. So communication is really, really important for family budgeting, and any type of budgeting or financial goals that don't just don't just directly affect you, if they affect others as well in your family or your household.
That's great. And, I also want to remind everyone, no matter how old your kids are, it's good to be having family discussions about finances and budgeting as a process in general, and obviously more detail as they get older. And especially obviously if you have teens, you can involve them more in the discussions, because this really is a habit, and this really is a mindset. And the more that we can establish this for our next generation of, it really will help them go a long way to be, successful in attaining these goals when they hit adulthood, as if they have a mindset and an infrastructure in their brain and in their habits, around it as well. We do some great work with our girls programming with our young women around this, conversation, but it really is never too young, to start talking about saving money and, talking about what they're doing with their money, just again, to create that habit and space. So we have some questions coming in, and I want to make sure we have time to get to them. One of them, is there a guide or a resource that you all can recommend as a means of creating better financial routines?
I think that we can maybe provide some resources and a list of other resources outside of just Cross River to help with some of those decisions and discussions. I think our Foundation at Cross River team is on this call now, so we'll make sure we take that as a follow-up to share with this audience.
That's great. And, those of you who do our webinars regularly know that we do connect with you after the event. And so we will e-blast that out to everyone. So obviously we have your information if you're on the chat. So we will make sure that whatever we are provided through Cross River does get out to everyone. So thank you. That's helpful. There was also a similar question that was focused on apps and what apps might be available as well. So I don't know if that's something that's might be in your resource list, or Lisa or Tanvi, if there is an app that you are using that you love, or that, maybe within your circle that you've seen people really have a lot of success with, it'd be great to share.
Yeah, I'll send some of that over as well, because I have a couple that we use for just like calculating our receipts, seeing where our money is being spent, what our budget is for, where you can input the budget for the week or the month, and it helps you really calculate and stay on track. So I can send that over after.
Great. Thank you. So we have a specific question that kind of came in when Lisa was talking early on. And it was about if, for example, someone has a $1,500 car expense, how do you, what are ways that you can manage that other than putting it on a credit card? I mean, it seems that, we're all conditioned that if an expense comes up, and again, that's more than, that we are anticipating, that we pull out the plastic, or I should say wave our phones these days, right? But whatever it is, that's how we pay for most things. Is there a thought process that we should like interrupt that action with beforehand to think about other options that might have less of a impact on us in the long term?
I think when it comes to spending, especially on a credit card, it's important to just think ahead of about how long it would take you to pay that off. Typically, if it's something that's going to take you months to maybe pay off, you might want to consider other options and maybe connecting with a financial institution to find if they're to see if you're eligible for a loan, if that amount of the purchase is within what they offer, and if the interest on that makes sense. Because with a credit card, typically it's revolving, so the interest tends the interest is charged on whatever the balance is for that month. So the longer it takes you to pay off, you're actually paying the additional expense of the interest.
Yep.
So that's just the rule of thumb. When we're thinking of months in terms of payment, looking, maybe connecting with a financial institution to see if there are other alternatives that will maybe save you a little money in the long run.
So that really leads to kind of where we started, that it is good to have that relationship set up in advance so that you're not just seeking them out, in the midst of kind of a crisis or a situation that pops up, but that you have some kind of, relationship. So you have someone that you can get on the bat phone, quick and try to find out, what do I do? What do I do when something pops up? So, and I'm so glad that we have now, Bernie and Rhoda and Heather and Karen have joined us as well. So Karen says that she's created a power hour for herself, that on Saturday mornings, usually from 10 to 11, she checks in with herself and her finances. I love that, Karen. That is so, empowering, creating that power hour for yourself. I love that. That's a great strategy. Maybe some of us, can think about employing, a power hour somewhere in every month based on, what Tanvi and Lisa are saying as well. If weekly is not, in the books for you, but getting it on your calendar. Bernie has also asked us, if you have any thoughts, and this is probably more so for Lisa, about the IRA QLAC, I guess. It's a fixed annuity which pays out monthly for folks starting at 80 to 85 years old and reduces RMD. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are you familiar with it? Anything you can share?
I think when looking to invest in an IRA, it's important to look at the current financial situation you're in and then where you expect to be at a certain point. Not everyone wants to kind of hold off the access to their IRA to 80 or 85. Some prefer to be able to access it a little earlier, and there are different types. So some of it, when you take out the withdrawals, it's income tax, and it's you're taxed on it as you take it out, and some it's pre-tax. So as you're putting into it, it's post-tax. So you're basically paying tax one way or another. We're just deciding when we want to do that, and when we plan to kind of pay that. So when it comes to IRAs, especially with anything related to retirement, it really depends on what you're looking to do, when you're looking to be able to access that money, and what type of financial situation you expect to be in at that point, whether you want to start, paying the income tax at the end, or to be paying the tax upfront when you kind of know what tax bracket you're in at that current point of contribution.
Thank you. Stephanie's asking too, now that interest rates are going up, to buy a home, which we keep hearing, more and more in the news. does that also mean that rates on CDs and interest rates are going to be going up for our savings account? Is that something that we can be looking forward to?
It doesn't necessarily correlate, and sometimes I think this is where it's important to check with your financial institution to see what they offer. The rates do change. It's important to see what the current rate for the investment is because it does fluctuate. So when you are ready to make that investment, it's important to just double check to make sure the rates are where you expect to see them, because things can change over time.
That's great. Thank you. And hi, Debbie. I see Debbie Williams has joined us as well. That's great. Thank you. So, just one more pitch for anyone. If you have any questions, our time is slowly dwindling as happens. It always goes quickly, and there's so many great questions. So thank you. If you have any others, please feel free to, drop them in either the Q&A or in the chat at this point, and we will get to them. I also want to make sure to mention before I jump back that we will be putting a survey up here for you, so you can give us some feedback about this event and give us some suggestions for future ones. So please do make a point of filling that in. So question for both of you, especially this process is so illuminating, and we are coming out of the holidays when people really did usually do one of their biggest spends of the year. So January in particular can feel very overwhelming when it comes to paying bills and watching them all come in. So often we're doing our spending online. As we all joke about the Amazon truck, driver being our best friend and, popping in so regularly, but eventually you've got to pay the piper. The Amazon comes to collect. And, so obviously we might see a big, that might be overwhelming at the beginning of the year, and emotionally, that might feel, like you're starting the year and just, that you're not gonna be able to get ahead of what you closed out last year with. And I could also imagine that once you're really doing the budgeting, you might realize if you're looking at your spending habits for shopping, or, some of those expenses that, maybe there's something to look at. Is there something going on with me emotionally, with my spending, when you start to see a trend there? What has been your experience with that with folks? Because that is part of, what's illuminating about this process, right? Not only where we're spending our money, but why are we spending our money there? There's a lot of questions too that maybe might lead us to thinking more about our career and our job. And are we, are those decisions correct based on, maybe what we need for our life? But a lot of questions will come up, personal questions, to navigate, with this process. And tell us a little bit about navigating that part of it, because I know that this crew, obviously based on the questions, really going to jump into this. What should they do with what they learn?
I would say, January should be a time to reset and recharge. We don't want to think so much of the new year as a resolution, because resolutions are seen more as a diet. It's temporary, it doesn't always last. So it should be a time for us to just reevaluate and look at, are we meeting the longer term expectations? We want to think about a whole lifestyle change. And how are we going to balance it throughout, time and time over and over again? So we want to navigate a little bit differently. And when we reset and we recharge, we're better focused, we're more proactive, we're in charge of what's happening with the decisions that we're making. And a bigger picture to look at, when a lot of times people react when they see, all their bills adding up, is were these needs or were these wants, these purchases and these investments, right? And I think we spoke about this during the last event that we had. Needs are necessities. We have to have them, and they should be taking priority. Wants are our desires. So wants are what typically fulfill that instant gratification. It just feels good in the moment. Those are more of the emotionally charged decisions that we're making. Whereas needs are going to be more consistent. day-to-day survival stuff, longer term decisions, right? Like investing in our 401k, putting away for college, making sure we pay the mortgage. So, you want to be able to, I would suggest, like, this is January, start separating the two and see what it looks like. What are your purchases, based on? Is it your needs or is it your wants?
That's great. That really helps create a healthier mindset all around, and really does speak to this being a year-long investment in this process, that it's going to help you uncover important information about your spending, but also important information about yourself and decisions to make. As we're wrapping up, I'd love and Lisa, do you have anything else to share on that point?
I think it is really important to check in and see where you're spending and what type of maybe emotional ties you have to certain spending patterns. And I just would want to add that, in the economy, I know there's a lot, that's going on, and a lot of people feel very uncertain. And I think I want to just say that it's very normal to feel a little uncertain about things, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow with our expenses. There can be unexpected things that come up, and that happens to everyone. There is not one person that knows everything and can make every, financial decision, the best way possible. We can only go with what we know at the time, and we have to know ourselves, and we have to know where we want to prioritize spending our money and saving in other ways. And just know that every financial situation is unique. Everyone's life is unique. And, the different things that come up in our day-to-day, unexpected things happen to everyone. It's just really how we kind of react and recover to that is, really just a good mindset to have. Is just staying calm and being able to look at what the next step is.
That's great. So, and I just want to tell everyone too, because I what I love about this process is it is, as we said, it's so empowering. It really sets you up for success. It sets you up to have to do some work for sure, but it's good work. It's work that will have, if it's tended to, will really have a positive impact in terms of your, growth and strength as an individual, hopefully for, your family, if you're, planning, for more than yourself. Our Women's Leadership Conference is coming in March, and that is a great place to also help you focus on some of your goals and the work that you need to do, and some of the strategies to be able to support that. So I know you're on our list. I know, if you're not following all of our social media channels, please get to them and get connected to them. We would love to have you join us in that space. It really is a focused opportunity of time in person, together this year, back to that, which we're so excited about, but, really time for you to be able to meet folks like Lisa and Tanvi in person and be inspired by them, and, really providing space for you to be able to do some of this work that day. So figuring out how to integrate it into your life outside of there as well. So I encourage you to stay connected to us for that. And I also want to tell you, because I do think sometimes processes like this do also lift up for you that maybe it's time for some changes in your life. And one of those changes may be a job change. We do have a great new program that is kicking off this year called YW Tech Lab, and it's a national partnership with Google and with YWCA USA. It's a workforce development program to help women, and especially non-white women, to advance their digital skills and really push their career options into the tech space, which, historically is where there, is a lot, some good, strong financial resources to be able to help you and your budget and your revenue. So, this process may make you think about, am I doing the right thing? Do I need a different job? Am I underemployed? Is there something else I wanted to do, is to start a side business? We have our Eureka program to help you with that. We have our Next Chapter program if you feel like you're underemployed, or if, the end of last year, you were impacted by some of the layoffs that we've seen happening, nationwide. There's a lot of support here for you at the YW. Alicia Maxey Green, who's on with us today, oversees our women's programming and can help get access to all of these initiatives and effort, and almost all of them are free or at very low cost to use. So we hope that you are able to make this time for yourself to do the financial goals and the strategies that Lisa and Tanvi have shared with us. We will be sharing with you the resources, excuse me, that they share with us, so that you have access to them as well. And, with that, I also, really just want to thank both of you for making the time and sharing your intel and your resources with us. Any last words to share with the group?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, and I wish everyone the best of luck in their financial goals and their budgeting this year.
Thank you so much. And obviously our crew here is, obviously thanking you all too for the time and everything that you've shared. Again, we encourage you to do our survey and stay connected to our social media for other programs. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.